I said yes to a man I loved more than he loved me, and I knew it. Let me be clear. I believed that he loved me. He had said the words. I knew he wanted me. He'd asked me to marry him. But deep down, I knew he wasn't all in, even if he really wanted to be. So what makes a woman choose a man who says he wants her, but isn't truly able to choose her? Well, I'm going to tell you. Not just from the psychology that was shaping me underneath it all, but from the place of spiritual and emotional hope that was driving me forward. Hope. That word, that single word, holds almost supernatural power. For me, after California, hope was the force that drove me forward. Like a wild stallion, it propelled me toward a future I both longed for and feared all at once. Yes, love was there, but love without hope collapses into empty places with nowhere to go. When I left California, following my reunion with Sam, I arrived home with joy and fear tightly intertwined. And yet, I chose joy, and I willed the fear aside. Sam and I entered a renewed intimacy in our conversations. His past had been squared away, and for the first time, I finally allowed myself to imagine a future where I was his. The romance returned. The laughter, the teasing, his affection. I soaked it all in like a dried sponge. Each visit felt sacred. The trips to the airport took on a special meaning for us both. The anticipation, the bustling excitement of the airport atmosphere, all culminating in euphoric embraces, kisses. I lived for those moments. Before I share what comes next, I want to pause and share something important, something necessary for where we're headed in this chapter and in the ones ahead. There is a quiet vulnerability in remembering a love that once felt pure, especially when it later became a place of the deepest wounding. At times, as I've been telling my story, even recalling those feelings has brought a sense of guilt, as though honoring what once moved my heart might somehow diminish the faithfulness to the life I live now. But I have learned that telling the truth about why we loved does not diminish where we stand today. It simply gives context to the choices that we made before we knew what they would cost. I'm sharing these details with you in the hope that they might encourage you to reflect on the moments that shaped you, not with bitterness or regret, but with a healed heart that can honor how you became who you are now, or gently reveal the places you may need to revisit in order to understand the pain that you still carry. Now let's return to the story. So, Sam was arriving for a particularly special visit. The drive to pick him up at the airport was just over an hour, and my heart pounded the whole way. So hard, in fact, that it almost hurt. The anticipation of being in his arms, of seeing his smile, filled me with an intensity I can still feel. The butterflies were relentless. I loved every minute of it. And as with every visit, I took great care in getting ready. I wanted to look beautiful for him. I remember his embrace that day, his declarations of love, and his smile. This time the smile was a little different, a knowing smile. I sensed it immediately. I hoped I knew why, but I wasn't yet certain. You'll have to forgive me for not remembering every detail of the timeline. It's been a while. What I do remember is that Sam said he wanted to go somewhere special to us. That would be Queen Elizabeth Park. The moment that I realized where we were headed, my heart began to race like it never had before. I think we went out for dinner, but that part has faded. What remains vivid is approaching the bridge in the park, the infamous bridge. It was nighttime, and as we approached the bridge, I was nearly certain of what was coming. Just over halfway across, Sam turned toward me. I don't remember the speech, and I don't remember the details. I do remember him telling me that he loved me. He asked me to be his wife, and with a heart full of love, without hesitation, I said yes. Here, in this memory, there's something else I can still feel. It was so strange. My heart overflowed with joy, and yet, even so, there was a tempering beneath it. As he held me in his arms afterward, I felt not only his happiness, but also his fear and insecurity, emotions I didn't yet fully understand the reason for. I sensed both his yearning and his restraint. It was an unspoken knowing, something I felt deep within my being. I could feel his desire for me to belong fully to him, never to leave. I felt his longing to be seen, to be nourished, and to be assured of his worth. And at the same time, I sensed that he knew he was asking more of me than he was capable of giving in return. I cannot fully explain it. I only know that I felt all of it in that moment. And still, I believed that I could love him into healing whatever it was that was holding him back. I had arrogantly decided that my devotion would be enough. It would become a long, excruciating journey to discover how wrong I was. I would not be allowed to be his savior, no matter how desperately I wanted to be. But in that moment, I was full of hope, the very hope that had been driving me all along. I did not take my uncertainty to God in full surrender. Instead, I asked him to make a way for me to have Sam's heart without any reservation. While I may not have been yielded, but this simple act of speaking honestly with the Lord about what my heart was feeling would later become a lifeline. Well, once we were engaged, the next natural step was to plan the wedding, and that is what we set out to do. Though, in truth, I planned most of it, with Sam's input here and there. It was a season marked by joy. Knowing that we were moving toward being together allowed our romance to deepen. We talked about our hopes and dreams. Sam's excitement was intoxicating to me. The thought of returning to California didn't trouble me at all. Leaving everything in Canada felt insignificant compared to the promise of no longer being separated from him. No more goodbyes. That alone felt worth it. Well, not everything was romance and roses, though. There was a quiet tension that had begun to surface when I had asked my dad to pray about some spiritual influences that Sam had been sharing with me, particularly teachings connected to Don's ministry, which he had become deeply invested in, both emotionally and financially. My father's resulting concern came from a desire to protect, not from suspicion. At first, Sam understood this, but as conversations between he and Don intensified, something shifted. Sam began to interpret my parents' questions not as care, but as threat. And sadly, over time, Sam's loyalties became increasingly divided. Each interaction between Sam and Don seemed to deepen Sam's mistrust of my parents, while reinforcing his dependence on that self-proclaimed spiritual authority. And the result was painful and confusing. My mother, who had been a place of comfort and safety for Sam on many occasions, someone he had willingly reached out to, sometimes for hours at a time, suddenly felt the distance. When she gently questioned him about what he was sharing with us, when she expressed concern, Sam responded defensively, at times even with hostility. This was devastating for her and deeply troubling for me. My parents loved Sam without reservation. They had shown him nothing but kindness, even through seasons of betrayal and strain. Yet I watched as relational safety was slowly replaced by suspicion, and closeness gave way to guardedness. I felt caught between worlds, loving my parents, loving Sam, and believing that if I loved him well enough, patiently enough, he would eventually see how safe he was. And so, we pressed on toward the wedding. Sam's spirits were mostly high, and much of the time, things felt very pleasant. Still, the closeness between Sam and my parents was just no longer the same. Well, our wedding unfolded in 2 parts. For immigration reasons, Sam asked that we have a legal marriage 1 month and a few days before our actual wedding day. So we arranged it, and it became a very sweet, almost surreal moment. Sam came for several days so that we could be married, and there, in my parents' living room, my family was genuinely overjoyed to see us reach this climactic milestone in our love story. Sam was elated, and so was I. When Sam returned home, he called my mother the moment the marriage certificate arrived in his mailbox, exclaiming, "She's finally my wife." 2.5 years of longing and hoping, twists and turns, heartache and sweetness had culminated in that treasured document, and he couldn't contain his joy. When I heard about that call after coming home from work, it comforted my heart deeply. I felt hopeful again, as though perhaps we could all still overcome the enemy's attempt at division. And then came our wedding day, December 12th, the middle of winter. Sam's excitement that day seemed to rise and fall. I'm not entirely sure why. I can only make guesses. It may have been because so few of his family were willing to come and celebrate our union. So Don had one other family under his ministry at the time, Danny and Rosie. He sent Danny to be Sam's best man. Apart from that, only Sam's aunt, who resided in the US, came that day. So perhaps it was the absence of his family, perhaps it was the influence of Don, or perhaps Sam simply felt the wedding was unnecessary now that we were legally married. Though there had been times he had excitedly helped me prepare for the day, whatever the cause. His mood shifted throughout the day, moving between genuine smiles and moments of sullenness. It surprised me, and it hurt. During our vows and the ceremony, though, he seemed completely captivated by me, completely in love. I felt the full weight of his emotions then, and it comforted me deeply. I was fully present, fully giving of myself, and I believe he saw the tenderness of my love for him in that moment. Perhaps he even felt it. His smile said he did. No matter what dark forces there may have been to rival our love that day, that moment at that altar was sacred. The most painful part of that day for me was seeing the distance between Sam and my parents. It was heartbreaking to see my mother hurting on a day that was supposed to be filled with joy for all of us. And still, the wedding was beautiful. The reception brought out the best in Sam. Many people spoke words of encouragement and prophecy over our lives, and it felt very blessed. And Sam's smiles were real. There were so many emotions for me that day. I remember this with crystal clarity. I sensed the weight of what I was doing, and in a very deep corner of my heart, I was preparing to walk a very challenging road. Why? It's simple. Because I loved him. So the following morning, before leaving for our honeymoon, we gathered with my parents to open gifts, because my parents were going to transport them for us. That time did bring comfort. There was sweetness there, even between Sam and my mother. Sam seemed so relieved and genuinely happy, and for a moment, my heart rested. I had done it. I had chosen the path. I had chosen the man. And now that seed of love I had planted took on a life of its own, because this man was my husband. What I did not know then was how vulnerable that love would make me. That love that carried immense joy and yet held far more than I understood. What brought me happiness was making Sam happy. Seeing him feel loved, hearing him tell me how grateful he was that I was finally with him as his, produced a euphoria I can scarcely describe. I have to be very honest. My love at that time was an untamed love, absent of godly surrender. It was sincere but reckless, and because it knew no boundaries, it left my heart exposed to emotional and spiritual harm. I had no idea the danger that my heart was in that day. I only knew that I had chosen fully and without reserve. So as we boarded the plane that day, I felt a strange fragility settle over me, even a sense that I was unprepared for what lay ahead. I prayed simply that my husband would love me as he promised, and as I had seen in his eyes. Now let me pause here to speak gently, but clearly, to any young woman who feels a love that knows no bounds and is charging ahead without being checked in spirit. Love that is not surrendered is not safe. A love that asks you to heal what only God can heal will cost you more than you can afford. And there are markers of a love that is safe. 1, you have sought the Lord's leading and submitted to it. 2, you are equally yoked and spiritually aligned. 3, you are not attempting to rescue someone through devotion. Well, in the next chapter of my story, I will share how I learned these lessons, not in theory, but in lived experience. And along the way, I want to impress and imprint you with this reality. Grief that isn't felt cannot be released. Pain that's skipped over doesn't teach. And hope that has not passed through sorrow feels hollow. It will not be easy, but it will be a lesson, or several lessons, worth watching. And I will share with you how the Lord carried me through each and every step, no matter how painful.